Hey, I'm Danny, aka Topless, and today my hiker tip, I wanted to talk about water. Specifically, how much water do you bring with you? How much water do you carry? It's actually a very simple and a very confusing topic. And wow, I just noticed how amazingly outrageous my hair is right now. Oh yeah, we're going with it. Let me start by saying the number one tip is where you should start. So, my tip about do what works for you, that's the real answer here. The problem is, how do you figure out what works for you? And it takes a few tries. So, let's start with that. It's going to take you a few tries to get it right. But here's the catch 22. You need the water because you need to drink it. Also, the water weighs 2.2 pounds per liter. So, the more water you drink, the heavier you're going to be and the more exhausted you're going to get and the more water you're going to drink. So if you say are going 10 miles and you bring, I'm just going to make an outrageous number, you bring 10 liters of water, then you're going to have to carry all that weight, and that's going to be really hard. You're going to be sweating, your legs are going to hurt, and you're going to be sucking down water the whole hike. And when you get there, you're going to say, whew, good thing I brought 10 liters because I absolutely drank them all. And that's kind of not the case. The case was you were too heavy, you were working too hard, and then you sucked down all your water because of it. So the water was actually making your life harder than it needed to. So back it all up. Where should you start? I'm just going to share my experience and a lot of what I've been hearing from the hikers around me. I'm hiking the PCT right now. I'm 600 miles in, and we have mostly been hiking through desert. We have been doing a little bit of hikes at night, and we're just starting to get to forests like this one right behind me. All of this. This is all kind of a new background for us. So I'm going to start with some easy estimates and some easy ways, just some quick tips that you should definitely just do, okay? So when you are at a water source filling up your bottles, drink some, right? As soon as you get there, drink a liter. Before you walk away from that water source, drink a liter or two. So if you drink the water, you don't have to carry the water. And it makes sure you're hydrated before you start. So some people around here have been calling it cameling up, but basically drink a liter, maybe a liter and a half before you walk away. Also, make sure you know how far you're going. This is not a guessing game, okay? Especially if you're hiking in the desert. You look at your maps, you look at your apps, whatever it is you're using, you talk to other hikers, and you find out where's the next reliable water source. Don't rely on water caches. They're there a lot of times, but they're not always there. So plan on water caches not being there. Have a backup plan. Now, the estimate that I like to use is 1 liter of water for every 4 or 5 miles I'm going to hike. And so for example, if I'm going to hike 20 miles, I bring 4 liters. And that's heavy, but as you're hiking, you're drinking, so it gets lighter. Also, I double check as I go. If I look down and I realize, okay, I've got 10 miles left on this 20-mile hike, I'm halfway through. And I look to see if I'm halfway through my water. If I'm not, I drink it. And I make sure I have 2 liters left for the last 10 miles. So there's no point in carrying 3 liters that I don't need, right, if I only have 10 miles left. So just as a good place to start, budget 1 liter for every 5 miles or every 4 miles, depending on you. And again, this is all going to come back to you're going to have to experiment and find out what's right for you. Also, think about what you're hiking through. When I budget a liter for 5 miles, that's walking through the desert and jumping in every piece of shade I can find and not walking through the hottest part of the day. If I night walk, I can make it 10 miles on 1 liter. If I'm walking through the forest, like around here, and I'm in and out of shade, again, I maybe a liter and a half for 10 miles. So the conditions you're in are going to influence it. So just recapping, Your own experience and how much you happen to drink is going to come into question, so you need to experiment. The conditions you're in, that's also going to be part of it, how far you're going. And finally, camping. Whenever possible, you want to camp at or near the water source, because that just makes life so much easier. But for example, if the next water source is 20 miles away and you're only able to hike 10 miles today, what I do is I bring an extra liter. So if you're camping, what they call that dry camping. If you're camping not by the water, they call that dry camping. So if you're dry camping, bring an extra liter. So on a 15-mile hike, I will bring 3 liters. If I plan on dry camping halfway between the 15 miles, I'll bring an extra liter, making it 4. I'll go halfway, stop, set up a tent. I know I have 1 liter for just all the things you'll do as far as like dinner and breakfast and that sort of stuff. So, quick summary, in the end, do what works for you. An easy estimate would be 1 liter for every 4 or 5 miles. Know that the conditions make a difference, whether you're in the sun or in the shade or at night. And again, if you're camping, bring an extra liter. And finally, one last thing. I was going to show you what a couple water sources look like, so I'm going to put up some footage of a few different water sources. Water sources are things like springs, creeks, rivers, stuff like that. Water that you can filter or treat. So I'll leave filtering and treating to a different video, but the short version is, I wanted to mention that because I go to the Arizona Hot Springs, which is near Vegas, and it's beautiful. It's a 2.5-mile hike in, and again, 2.5-mile hike out. That's 5 miles. So I tell everyone to bring 3 liters, and we hike in with a liter, we hang out with a liter, and we hike out with a liter. In the future, I'm going to bring a water filter, and because the Arizona Hot Springs is right next to the Colorado River, I'm just going to bring 1 liter. Hike in with a liter, go fill up as many liters as you want and filter them from the Colorado River. Hang out for as many days as you want because you've got water supplied from the river, and then fill up before you want to walk out. So that's going to drastically change the way I go to the Arizona Hot Springs because there's a water source. So I'm hoping your hikes will also drastically change once you realize water sources are out there and you can only carry as much water as you need to get to the next water source. Hey, I've got one more final thought on water. So everything I've been talking about so far has been, what is the minimum amount of water I need to carry? You camel up before you leave the water source, you calculate the minimum amount of water you need to carry, and you go for it, right? Well, I've been doing that. And while it's great, while you learn to conserve water and things like that, I've also noticed that I've slightly changed my strategy. I now carry a little more water than I need for a couple of reasons. But for example, I am on a 12-mile hike right now, and instead of bringing 2 liters, I brought 3. And the idea here is I can carry 3. It's no big deal. And from there, I can drink as much water as I want. It's no big deal. So I'm not stressing about water because I brought a little extra. And because I brought a little extra, I'm getting good at carrying that extra 2 pounds. So when I do have a more difficult water carry, I already know how to do it. Like my legs are already strong enough, if that makes sense. So one final thought, after you figure out what the minimum is, after you experiment and figure out what's right for you, you might also want to experiment with, what if I bring half a liter extra? Will that just relieve my mind of all nervousness? Will that just make things happier and easier for me? If I don't have any anxiety, maybe I can enjoy my hike more. So now I carry a little extra, and it's been really wonderful actually. So try that too. As part of carrying that little extra, you also end up with slightly different decisions. For example, if there's water 5 miles away and then water another 5 miles away, I might just carry 10, right? So instead of carrying a liter to the first 5, getting water, carrying a liter to the second 5, getting water again, I might just carry 2 liters, walk the 10, not have to stop. Like, you start to get little bonuses like that where you have more decisions if you just carry just a little bit extra. So whatever's right for you. I understand if your pack is super heavy and you've got to do the minimum, do the minimum. But if you're good and maybe you're at the end of your hike and you don't have as much food, carrying a little extra water can just make everything just so much easier. And here's some footage of a couple of water sources just so you know what I mean. So it's piped in here, and the trough doesn't work. I've never used the trough before, so I think the trough is literally for things like cattle and horses. But yeah, it's a fairly good rate. It took a few minutes to fill up my 2 liters, but it was such a beautiful sight when I saw it after going all day through the sun and almost running out of water. This was such a sight for sore eyes. So this is one of the nicer piped in springs plus troughs that I've seen so far. This water is really coming out at a great flow rate. The trough, because the water's flowing so fast, the trough is also nice and clean. Even though I'm not going to pull water out of it, I always go straight to the source. And then it's overflowing, so it creates a nice little bit of greenery right through here. But yeah, really nice water source today. Let's look down here. Oh, I see movement. Oh yeah, look at that. Look how that is running real fast. Perfect. I'm gonna pull my water from right here. So here's a trick. I made a scoop out of the top of a bottle because I can't get my water bladder into the creek here, so I'm gonna use a scoop. You can take the scoop and dip it right in where the water's already running and just let it fill. Like over here as well. Right, anywhere it's running. Or you can bring it to a clear pool that's already moving and just dip and take a whole scoop out. All right, so I'm in the desert. I have a water cache behind me. It is epic. However, where's the next water? It looks like a lot of the water up ahead is dry, and there's another water cache 15 miles from here. And the Guthook comments, Guthook being an app, tell me that the water cache should have a good amount in it, and the comment is 2 days old. So it looks like I'm going from here to the next water cache, which is 15 miles. So here's the rub. I have already gone 14 miles today. It's 4 o'clock. So do I bring 3 liters, which is 1 liter per every 5 miles, is basically what I've been budgeting. Do I bring 3 liters and try to walk another 15 miles, which gives me about 30 miles today, which is my highest. My highest was 27. And just keep walking until I get there? Or do I bring 4 liters, walk halfway, and camp? So this is the kind of conundrum that you're going to run into when you're planning your water. As soon as life happens, it gets way more complicated than budgeting 1 liter per 5 miles and 1 liter to dry camp. So I'm sitting here struggling, 4 o'clock. Do I want to carry 3 liters and walk all night? Or do I want to carry 4 liters, which is heavier, walk halfway? I think I'm going to walk all night. The weather's been really great to me. I'm in the desert. It rained earlier. There are clouds right now. It's been incredibly good weather, and I'm not drained by the sun. So even though I haven't gone 30 miles before, I think I have enough time and the weather's awesome. I'm gonna take 3 liters and walk 15 more miles to do 30 today. So there you go. That's a real life plan on how the water can work sometimes. All right, I'm walking away from the water cache. It's 4:45. I took a moment to eat something, get some calories, and drink as much water as I could before walking away. I'm walking away with 3.5 liters, and it's kind of interesting. You're basically making a bet on your own abilities, and instead of using money, you're betting with water. All right, it's 5 o'clock, 14.1 miles to go. All right, it's 9 o'clock. I got 5.2 miles left. Normally, since I got 5 miles left, I would drink all the excess water I have and go down to 1 liter. But since I'm heading towards a cache, and you shouldn't depend on caches, I'm gonna stick with what I have, which is 1.5 liters. That way I have a little extra when I get there, just in case the cache is empty. All right, it's 11 o'clock, and I just rolled up onto the water cache, and it looks great. Awesome. I'm gonna camp here for the night and call it a day. I actually just ran into a bunch of other tents, so it looks like there's some other people who made it this far last night as well. Sweet.